Good afternoon, everyone. We're already well in the second half of our Asia Pacific Business Innovation Summit, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot of new things. But we have more exciting stuff for you all, so refill that cup with coffee while I introduce our speakers for this session: remote workforce solutions, cloud infrastructure, and applications for business continuity and employee engagement. We have Harsha Purasinghe, founder of MIHCM, a global leader in digital HR solutions. He was recognized as the most outstanding entrepreneur in the ICT industry of Sri Lanka in 2007 and was one of the 21 selected globally for the 2014 Eisenhower Innovation Fellowship granted by the Eisenhower Fellowships in the US. Alongside him is Miguel Arcilla, Cloud Solutions Architect of Microsoft Asia Pacific. Miguel helps drive technical growth of Microsoft software and application builders. Hi, Harsha and Miguel. How are you gentlemen doing today?
We're doing very well. Thank you very much, Ara, for having us.
Ara, thank you for having us. We are doing very well.
We're really, the pleasure is all ours. Now, I know you two have a lot to share with us, and we're really excited. So let's get started. Miguel, the spotlight is on you.
Thank you very much, Ara. I am just about to kickstart my presentation. Okay. So thank you very much again for the introduction, Ara. My name is Miguel Arcilla. I am a cloud solutions architect at Microsoft. And as Ara mentioned, I work with Microsoft partners, specifically software builders, on creating new solutions and new applications that they go to market with Microsoft in. Today, I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from the application building part and focusing a little bit more on the solutions that IT and Microsoft help enable within our workforce. And in this case, we're particularly focused on empowering a digital and remote workforce. I think it's really important to highlight this because, with conditions that have happened around the world, it's really safe to say that the modern workplace has changed. It's not changing, it's changed. When COVID-19 first impacted, countries, and many were starting to go under lockdowns or go under restrictions with how their industries could function and how their people could work, many found themselves struggling to adjust to that change where they may not have a physical office anymore. They may not be able to congregate in one place or another, or they may find that most of their workforce needs to perform the tasks that they have at home. Right. And this is not something that is new. There have been industries and agencies where people were able to work remotely, and there were roles that were designed not to be tied to a single office. But having it done at such a scale, it was really an unprecedented event, and making the impact that each company has felt and how they've been able to respond to it has really shown kind of our preparedness as a whole to this type of to this new world of work. I recall, I think when COVID was first impacting us in the Philippines, that there were some pictures going around where in our BPO or call center industry, some companies were actually sending desktops home with their employees. So you would see pictures of people leaving an office building with a whole desktop tower PC to bring home and start work. While this would help them solve the issues of getting hardware in the hands of your employees, it doesn't really help with connectivity to the right resources, making sure that the right tools are made available, and that you can extend the bounds of your office to wherever your employees are. So this need for virtual work environments is really growing, and it's not again not specific to just this type of industry or a specialized workload, but it's really making BYOD, or bring your own device and work anywhere, something that is a requirement rather than a nice to have. In particular, with COVID-19, we're noticing that this really helps remote work for information workers, the people who are able to do a desk job, but maybe don't need to be physically present at a site to perform a critical function. And this is something I think that as more countries are starting to ease restrictions or come up with the protocol for how they engage in their physical space, you're going to find that these information workers will continue to be remote and will need to have these resources available even well past the COVID-19. You're also going to see this apparently with first-line workers who need to have access when they're on the field, when they're out and about, and they may not have the desktop PCs or the same hardware resources that an office worker would come to expect. In this case, you want to be able to give them all the apps and all the access they need on the device of their choosing. And also for healthcare, schools, and government, these are also very critical functions that I think fall in line very much with your information and your first line workers as those who need that type of experience. Today, the way that you can actually access things, or the way that we currently access our Windows and desktop applications, can be a little bit limited. Either we're using Windows 10 local PCs in the office or maybe in our laptops, or we are using virtualization solutions that allow us to manage and distribute desktop experiences to multiple users, but in a way that we're also bound to managing the hardware, managing the infrastructure, and all of the tasks that come with keeping that kind of application running. Today, though, we actually have more solutions on hand that are available to us that allow us to provide the full Windows 10 experience to a multitude of users without having to worry about the overhead and the management of all this critical infrastructure. And with this, I want to talk about Windows Virtual Desktop.
In this time of digital transformation, businesses are shifting to a modern desktop to empower their people. But not all employees sit in an office, use only one device, or always work from secure locations. What if you could deliver a modern desktop experience to every worker, everywhere? Introducing Windows Virtual Desktop, the full Windows experience virtualized in the cloud. Always up to date and available on any device. Optimized for Office 365, so you can deliver the most productive experience to your users. Delivered on Azure, so IT can quickly virtualize and deploy modern and legacy desktops. The best virtual desktop experience, delivered on Azure. Windows Virtual Desktop.
So again, in a world where IT now is really tasked with the responsibility of finding solutions that enable business continuity and minimize loss of productivity for employees, Windows Virtual Desktop is really coming into its own as a solution that helps this IT transform the workplace past the confines of their office. With Windows Virtual Desktop, we can provide a full desktop experience, authenticating your users without the need to be in a physical space. We're able to reduce the time and cost it takes to deploy such a solution, and we also reduce the management tasks that come with having such complex infrastructure. What's also great about this is you can actually deploy, get up and running, and start empowering your users in minutes. With Windows Virtual Desktop, we offer the full desktop or remote application experience to your users, and we allow them to actually take advantage of this virtualized infrastructure, again, as a managed service, where Microsoft handles a lot of the heavy lifting for you in terms of distributing users, making sure that all of your users have the right machine, that we have the right networking enabled. And in this case, it makes it a lot easier for IT to worry more about what applications I want to expose to which users and how I secure their access to those applications. In this case, Windows Virtual Desktop is accessible from any device of your choice via a Windows, Mac device, a web browser, even a mobile device. And because we take advantage of the Microsoft security ecosystem, you're ensured that whatever device they're accessing does not put the security of your organization at risk. In that case, and when I talk about security, I really refer to the whole Microsoft ecosystem. In this case, we look at things like Microsoft 365 and Azure Active Directory as an enabler for the right identification, where we can securely log in users wherever they are. We take advantage of Azure's over 90 compliance offerings and billions of dollars in cybersecurity investment to make sure that the servers that you run to deliver your virtual desktop experience are completely secure. And Windows Virtual Desktop takes advantage, it goes a step further by taking advantage of other types of technology like HTTPS, so secure HTTP, rather than going for a remote desktop protocol to access your resources, meaning that we don't expose harmful ports or sensitive ports over the internet, and Windows Virtual Desktop in Azure take care of only showing what is needed to the end user. Like we said, with Azure AD, what you're giving your employees here is the ability to use single sign-on, where they can take the username and password that they know that they would use for their email, for their Office applications, and use that to access their on-premises or their work applications, right? In this case, it's the full desktop experience that you're giving them. Since Windows Virtual Desktop uses Azure AD for authentication and management, you can also integrate that with the full Azure cloud, allowing you to extend through an Azure virtual private network, extend your local infrastructure into the Azure infrastructure, and give your employees the experience like they've never left the office. We're also able to secure your user access from anywhere. With Azure AD, you have the ability to use tools like a multi-factor authentication or conditional access to understand where your users are logging in from, if they're using approved devices, if there are any suspicious IP addresses. And these are tools that, as an IT administrator, you may not have had in the past, right? Not knowing where your people were coming from or accessing their work resources. Since we use Azure AD as an authentication mechanism, not only are you simplifying the login process for your users, but you're also making it easier to monitor when they access their resources for their work tasks. There are two ways that we recommend setting up Azure AD and Windows Virtual Desktop for organizations. If you're fully in the cloud, and you use Azure AD for logging into Office 365, we recommend solutions like Azure Active Directory Domain Services, which will do a job of simulating a physical Active Directory. If you don't have an Active Directory today, this is really a great tool because it allows you to deploy an Active Directory-like service that makes sure that the devices or the servers that you put on a Windows Virtual Desktop solution are secured, and it means you also don't have to manage an Active Directory at the same time. However, if you are managing an Active Directory, you actually do have the ability to extend, as we mentioned before, through a virtual private network, extend your on-premises network safely and securely into an Azure data center where you can deploy virtual desktop solutions and expose them to your users, giving them, again, access to any of their devices to use their essential work tasks. With this, I'm going to show you a quick demo of actually how we make that happen. I'm going to be simulating two users who are going to be accessing my application. First, I have John at miguelarcilla.com. So this is John Doe. He's one of my critical users who needs access to a full desktop experience. I'm sorry. Let me try signing in again. Here we go. So John needs access to a full desktop experience, and he may not always have the right device at home. Maybe his laptop doesn't have enough power. Maybe he's only on a browser or a thin client somewhere. Maybe he's only on his phone, and he still needs to access these resources. Since by logging into the Windows Virtual Desktop environment, John has access to a virtual desktop machine that we provisioned for him. He can come in and from his browser, wait for this one to load up, and he'll be able to log in here. So I can log in again as John. Okay, and once he's up and running, he has the full Windows 10 Enterprise experience, complete with the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 applications he needs, as well as any legacy applications we may need to provide. For some organizations, this is an intranet website. For some organizations, it could also be a desktop application that he needs. So in my case, I have a very simple calculator app. You can imagine, and maybe in my organization, we have specific ways that we do calculations. So we're very reliant on this type of calculator. With Windows Virtual Desktop, John is able to access his full desktop experience and also access the legacy applications that are important to him. Now, how would this work for somebody who doesn't need the full desktop experience, but still needs access to select apps? In this case, we can also use Virtual Desktop to extend specific single applications to a user. In my case, I'm now signed in as Miguel Arcilla, who is a first-line worker in my organization. And for Miguel, some tasks are important for him. All he needs is a simple spreadsheet application, a web browser, and maybe that same calculator app. Through Windows Virtual Desktop, I can restrict his access so that he doesn't need the whole desktop experience, but he may just need access to a single application. In this case, I can open up Microsoft Edge, so my web browser, which could have access to an intranet website, and you'll see that I get the full experience of Microsoft Edge. I'll just exit my full screen here. Okay, so I get the full Microsoft Edge experience, without having to worry about a whole desktop that I'm exposing to this user. So it's really specific to his type of task. Now going back, he might also need access to that calculator application, and you'll see that through Windows Virtual Desktop, I can also enable access to the same legacy applications in a limited controlled environment. So that was a quick showcase of what we can do with Virtual Desktop in terms of exposing your entire desktop or single apps very quickly and efficiently to your users wherever they are. Now, in terms of getting started, if you have, most clients may not know it, but they actually do have licenses that are eligible for Windows Virtual Desktop. If you're a user of Microsoft 365 E3, E5, our student plans or first line plans, or if you have Windows 10 Enterprise, you may already be entitled to use Windows Virtual Desktop right off the bat. So it's very good to take advantage of these and also take advantage of commercial programs that we have in Azure that ensure that you not only save on the licensing costs of deploying a virtualization solution, but that you can also use reserved instance pricing to pre-commit for a 1 year or 3 year period and save significantly on the infrastructure that you use. One great thing about reserved instances now is we can even do that in a monthly payment option too. So it's a way that you can very efficiently, cost-effectively deploy. I'm going to leave you with one last step, which is how you can actually build your digital workplace today and some steps you can take to get started. First off, you can go to our WVD Get Started link to get an overview of Virtual Desktop in more depth, or you can see a step-by-step deployment in our WVD virtual event. If you are already at the point where you're looking at rolling this out for your users, you might want to check what the experience will be for your users depending on where they are, where they're going to be accessing remotely. And the experience estimator helps you also pinpoint where you should be deploying your resources and what the experience will look like for your end users. Lastly, we have WVD pricing that you can use to use an Azure pricing calculator and see how much it will cost. So if you're already at a point where you're ready to start going, this will help you build your cost estimates and understand how much it will cost to get this going. Lastly, we partner with great organizations like TechOne Global, who we're presenting with today, who are able to do these assessments with you. So if you'd like to do that, you can also give them a ring and let them know that you'd be interested. That's all I have for enabling business continuity without losing productivity in a remote workplace world. I want to hand over to Harsha, who's going to be discussing more about productivity and also employee engagement with remote solutions. Over to you, Harsha.
Thanks, Miguel. It's a wonderful presentation. Actually, even I've learned a few things. In fact, most of the BPO services companies would have made use of this rather than running around with desktop to respective people's houses.
It's not too late to change.
Yeah, can I go ahead and share so you can stop sharing? So
please go ahead. Thank you.
All right. I hope everyone can see my slides.
Yeah, we can see your slides. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are connecting. Thank you, TechOne, for inviting me to be part of this session. Today, I'm going to share something very exciting that we built top of Microsoft platform, mainly on Teams, to manage remote workers or the remote workforce. But before I get that, let me share how my life got disrupted within the past 3 months. You know, I used to these sessions I really like to do live events. I'm not a big fan of these kind of sessions. I used to do these sessions in Manila, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Colombo, Yangon, everywhere across Southeast Asia over the past 3 years. So I'm literally on a flight every month. And the first picture you see is a picture that is taken prior February this year. And the picture with the mask is my last business trip that was in February, where it was an amazing experience where I was flying to Cambodia from Kuala Lumpur, where I have to wear a mask, where literally everybody on the flight was wearing a mask, and even the crew was wearing a mask. I felt when I was coming back, what a experience, complete change the way I was traveling. And so certain things were not served on the flights and all that. Next month, on 12th of March, to be precise, I was on my way to airport to catch a flight all the way to Manila, and where I get a breaking news alert saying that WHO has declared COVID-19 as a global pandemic. So immediately, I spoke to a few friends. They said, don't go, don't travel, get home. So I go to check-in counter, cancel my flight, straight went home. On the way home, I talked to some of our leadership, and literally on the 13th itself, we switched the entire company to remote work. Both our Kuala Lumpur office and Colombo office were switched to remote work. And since then, all the way till June, we are working remotely. We have gone to our offices just occasionally, just for a couple of incidental things, but still we work remotely, and it was very successful for us. Why it was? So if you may ask what's the reason for it, we use extensive digital technology where within the last 3 years, we have transformed everything into cloud and digital platforms. So we use all the Microsoft productivity tools from Office 365 to Teams to whatnot. Then our entire engineering is on Microsoft Visual Studio and the DevOps and the whole automation. And we use extensive Microsoft projects, Asana, tools like that, and we use HubSpot, and we use our own HCM for extensively manage our workforce, their performance, training, everything is done through tools. And I'll share a very interesting tool that we've built for everybody, to a simple tool that can, irrespective of what system or what HR system you use, you can use. So we use cloud ERP. So therefore, for us, it's business as usual. Now, the companies who have adopted a digital HR platform, transitioning to this remote workforce management wasn't a difficult task. All the customers of ours who were using our platform, they had the full service experience on web, mobile apps and chatbots, and also they had the ability to process their payroll on the cloud. Everything was doable. But what I'm going to talk to you today is an interesting experience. We thought it's timely that we bring in for remote work, or rather the remote workforce. So during this past few months, I think we all have started extensively, or rather the globally, especially the people who are in the Microsoft ecosystem, one of the binding applications for everybody has been none other than Microsoft Teams application. We wake up in the morning with the Teams application. We end the day with Teams application. We do chat, calls, meetings. Everything is integrated within Teams. So this is not an application which we wrote within the last 3 months. It was an application that we built actually end of last year, and we were planning to properly launch it this year with an event. But then the COVID happens, and we felt that what better time to unveil this than this, because this is the time that people really need these tools. You know, this is a simple application which does lots of interesting employee experience, HR service execution per se. All you have to do is just provision a tenant with us, irrespective of what HR system you use. Then the users can simply add this digital assistant from the app ecosystem in Microsoft Teams and execute host of interesting day-to-day HR services. And it produces lots of interesting data which can be processed and generate very vital reports, especially on employee productivity. So let me share the experience that typically that we experience in the morning. Okay, let me go back. I'm having a problem with my slides, playing the video. Just give me a minute. Wow, this is interesting. Okay, as you can see now, in the morning, it will greet you and it will show you the schedule of the day for you, and it will show who's on leave for the day and ask you to check into work. And you just check into work. So, I mean, this is an experience that we go through every day. We don't need to remember and check in. It greets you. It's integrated to the Outlook calendar. I'll play again if you have not seen it properly. It will just greet you. It's Outlook integrated, so it will show the schedule for the day, check you in. You can check in from home on Office and seamless. So you don't need to log into any other application. You are in Microsoft Teams. You just simply execute this task through Teams. Similarly, at the end of the day, we have built a very simple timesheet application where you can submit the work that you accomplished for the day. And automatically it captures all your meeting time from Outlook. So you don't need to resubmit those. But the rest of the work, you can tag it to the respective work category and submit those tasks that you have executed. It could be responding to emails. It could be doing your own work, preparing a presentation and so forth. You just submit. It takes like few minutes. You just submit the day. And what it does, the submissions does, I will show later how it translates into very interesting productivity reports and other information. Also, if somebody wants to take leave, they don't need to go and fill complex forms. It's very natural. You can just simply say, I'm taking leave from next Monday to Friday or next Monday to Wednesday, and put the leave reason, confirm. It will go to the respective reporting person. So simple as that. So you are still in the Microsoft Teams environment. You are not logging into various applications and filling up forms. All the back-end heavy lifting is done by our application. So if you want to do a simple leave balance check, you can just do this by say check leave balance. It's very simple. You're still on Teams. And if you want to, again, request for different services. So one of the things that when you are working remotely, you may need to request for various HR services. It could be requesting for a certain letter, authorization letter, or you may need some additional equipment to work, a new laptop, or let's say connectivity, whatever things that you really, to make your work from home productive, various requests that you want to make, you can just do it through this interface. And it will route to the respective person in your office to get it fulfilled. So it's another really cool thing that have, and it really helps people working remotely to seamlessly engage with your HR and IT or any other service divisions in the company. And similarly, and some companies still want to do check-in, check-out, though they are working from home. We as a company don't really bother about check-in, check-out. We allow people to figure out flexible work schedules, which we can talk about during our Q&A. But some companies, especially BPOs or services companies, they have to do client servicing. So they have to really capture that in time with the location, maybe out time with the location. So they can still do that again from the Teams application. And if you want to do time chain requests, you can do that. I'm gonna spend time on that. It's a very simple thing. And if you want to see which roster you are working, frontline workers, if you want to know what roster you are working, things like that, those requests you can just do. And if you want to access one of your past pay slips, you can simply type pay slips, let's say January 2020 or February 2020, and access to those pay slips. And another interesting thing is HR can time to time send various alerts and notices directly to this app, which you can do it in Teams too, but it's very cool when you do it in a application like this, because when they open it up, you actually know who read it, and we can show through analytics the people who have given consent or who have really accessed this information. For example, this is work from home tips compiled by us and send it to all our team members to, for example, to maintain correct posture. I mean, sometimes we take things like this for granted, but in certain countries, with certain company policies, in certain regulated environments, employees can sue their organizations if they are not really advised or given that right instructions for work, and taking breaks, then daily keeping yourself active. And if you are a company, you are encouraging flex schedules, sharing those tips and notices, various other important notices. Let's say you all of a sudden decide to work from office as well, who needs to go to work, all these notices you can just dispatch through this same interface. Now, there are much more features which I'm not going to spend time. I've shared some of the very interesting set of features. Then what it does is it produces these interesting reports straight from Teams. You don't need to, again, log into any other system. Straight from Teams interface, you can generate these very intuitive productivity reports to various other reports. And you can instantly, after the next day, let's say, for example, today's productivity, end of the day or next day morning, you will see the overall productivity of the company across divisions, departments, by job category, across various other attributes. And even go into the employee level, what work they have accomplishing. Like a team leader wants to see what work his team has accomplished within that day. He or she can go and drill down to that level. And also, if you want to generate check-in, check-out information and export it out to Excel or any other system, you can do so. You can see the leave utilization information. And also, every employee, they themselves can gain access to something like My Work Analytics, which is a very interesting report where you can actually see your own analytics, your own productivity or attendance, your leave for the whole given period. So it could be for a week or given month. Then you will know where you have spent your time. Is it on your own work, or whether you spend time on meetings, or whether you spend time on client calls or learning, or what are the time where you have spent time within that period. So these are the kind of things that we show. So what else we are doing with this application? So we are bringing in approvals also to the product, where you don't again need to log into various web applications or mobile applications to do approvals. If you're on Teams, you can just do leave approvals and some of the other important approvals straight out of the Teams application. And also we are bringing in surveys and pulse surveys when people are working remotely. A lot of organizations want to do frequent surveys to see the employee's pulse. So we are bringing that capability also in, and many more very interesting, useful functions, especially people when they are working remotely. So and this is a very interesting transition for employee experience and engagement, because today when people spend most of their time on a collaborative tool like Microsoft Teams, we have essentially built the whole HR or work service experience top of that. Previously, the experience was they would have to log into a web interface or a mobile interface or a chat bot separately. Here you are in the same thing. That's the difference we bring. And it's a very simple application, and it works with or without MIHCM. That means you may be using any HR system from any provider, but we can through APIs integrate if you want to integrate, or if you want to run standalone, you can still run standalone as well. But there could be people who say, no, we are not on the Microsoft Teams environment, therefore we still want to use this kind of functionality. But for them, of course, we have the same thing on web and mobile, meaning we have very sophisticated timesheet applications for web and mobile, comprehensive leave management, reach HR function which I shared on the Teams application. The same capabilities are available on the mobile and the web, the issuing notices, payslip access, managing your team, and even checking or doing your rosters and checking your rosters. Now, I know some of the companies have started to get into a sort of hybrid mode, meaning some people are working remotely and some people have shifted to go to office on a rotational basis. So if HR wants to schedule that and properly manage it, we have tools to do that. And also some companies really wanted to do attendance marking depending on their nature of work with geolocation, geofence, check-in, check-out with the location captured, and also with biometric authentication. So we recently brought in biometric authentication also to our mobile app. So we have all these capabilities purely enabled on our mobile app for people who really want to make use of those extensive capabilities. Another key thing is, of course, apart from the analytics it provides, another interesting application which became of interest to most of our customers, and we got a lot of inquiries, was learning delivery. Because with COVID, what happened was your regular classroom style training, compliance training, all got disrupted. Now you have your training content, you need a digital platform to deliver. So we have platforms like Sixa, which is a learning management system, which is home compliant. You can have your learning content nicely structured and delivered over and over again to a batch. But recently we did a very interesting update to the product, where we integrate this product with Microsoft Teams and Zoom, where you can actually essentially do, apart from your offline content, you can even do a live lecture where the lecture timing, date will be sent as notification and block people's calendars. And when they participate, we can actually seamlessly get the participation details back into the Sixa application. So with the remote workforce, learning delivery and keeping your team reskilled, upskilled, and keep them growing has become a very important aspect for companies, and they have found it challenging to do classroom training, and they have all the training providers, resources joining. So therefore, they wanted to leverage tools like that. I'm not going to touch base on other areas. So we as a company provide a complete spectrum of digital solutions. So another request that has been coming during the past 3 months was to do payroll processing on cloud, because lots of people got hit when they had legacy payroll systems running on their desktop. So unless you have not utilized something like virtual desktop, which was shown by Miguel earlier, you would have had challenges processing your payroll. But if you're on cloud, doesn't matter, you can process your payroll from anywhere. And also same goes to things like attendance and importantly performance. Now people are really concerned how to do performance check-in, because when you're on a remote workforce, maybe rather than doing your annual appraisals or quarterly biannual, maybe you can start to do this continuous basis appraisal. For that, you need to have modern digital platforms to do that. So we provide our solutions for small and medium businesses and also for very large enterprises. And also the Teams app that I showcased earlier is an app which can be used by any company anywhere in the world, irrespective whether they're a customer of MIHCM or not. So they can just make use of that app. It's just a matter of talking to us or one of our partners, partner like Tech1 Global, and they can provision a tenant, and we are offering free trials together with Microsoft for the Teams app. It's an app which it's created a lot of interest because it's a different experience, or rather different employee experience that we are bringing to employees to engage straight through Teams. And also we have a dedicated set of solutions mainly engineered for work from home scenarios. So if you go to www.myhcm.com, you can find out more about those solutions. With that, I would like to wrap up and like to take questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation, Miguel and Harsha. Now we are going to be opening up our lines for some questions from the audience. Now, let me just go ahead and check out our questions here. Okay.
Are we allowed to nominate some questions that we thought were quite notable?
Yeah, for sure. Although we actually have one already here.
Sure.
Yeah, so first question is, does virtual desktop allow secure file transfer from my local workstation to the VM where my legacy app sits?
Okay, so that's a very good question. I actually I wrote out my answer to this, but short answer is yes. And the way that it does this is when you have your local legacy application that resides in your office data center, your on-premises data center. When you use a solution like Windows Virtual Desktop, you're connecting an Azure virtual data center, so a small private data center that only belongs to you, and you can connect the two endpoints through site-to-site VPN technologies or an express route technology, allowing you to establish a secure communication between your data center and the Azure data center. What effectively happens then is you can treat the whole thing like a larger local network where Azure virtual desktop resources can see your server like a local server. From there, you can actually access those. So a user who's accessing the Windows Virtual Desktop client will log in and see their virtual desktop, which still behaves as if it were part of your local office infrastructure. And that's how you can do things like secure file transfer, access legacy applications, and expose these company resources without really exposing them. So that's a very good question, though.
Okay, all right. Now we have another question, and I assume this is for Harsha. How heavy is the MIHCM app? Sometimes MS Teams is already slow because of BW limitations here in Philippines, bandwidth limitations here in the Philippines. Just concerned that the integration will slow it further.
No, I mean, so the Teams application, I don't know when you say slow, which part is slow, because you can use the mobile app. Teams has the beauty of the Teams app is it doesn't necessarily need to be your desktop application. Our app, which I demonstrated, works actually really well on the mobile app. So if you have a decent mobile connection, it works. And it's a very thin request which goes out of the application. The heavy lifting happens in the backend, so you don't necessarily need to worry about the connectivity per se. As long as you can actually do normal Teams transactions like messaging with anyone, it works. So if you have that experience, it just works.
Okay, all right. Now we have another question here. I have a legacy application. Does Azure have a way of presenting my UI in a web-based format, HTTPS?
Yes, so yes, you do. And actually, I had it in my demo earlier. When you saw that in my two demonstrations, I had one where you were exposing the entire desktop, so an entire virtual desktop experience, but you could also restrict that just to specific apps, which in my case was a web browser. So if you were exposing just the web browser, for example, that person would see a virtual web browser, but that web browser was running on a machine that was considered to be inside your office, essentially. So if you had local intranet applications, you could just use the web browser's HTTPS capability to browse to your local intranet applications and experience it as if you were at the office. Thank you for the question, Ara.
Now, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have. But for the other questions that haven't been answered, please do send them to aliana@techoneglobal.com and we'll answer them. And the others already posted here, we'll make sure to get to them as well. All right. Now, thank you very much, Miguel and Harsha, for joining us today. And many thanks to our audience as well. Thank you again, Harsha and Miguel.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day, everybody.